Hey everyone, my name is Raleigh Carter and I've been working on this gymnastics framework for the last 7 years, and this is just another video of me trying to bring as much value to your gymnastics career or business for free. We're in the video of care. This is the third of a series of ABCs to experience magic, essentially. Hey everyone, my name is Raleigh Carter. This is the third video of a series. If you have not seen the videos on attention and behavior, then I recommend that you just go back and check those out. But this is the video on care. It is the third part of the series talking about how to improve the experience of the student or athlete. I've been spending the last 7 years working on this gymnastics framework, and so I'm just pumping out these videos, as many as I possibly can, to just bring as much value to your gymnastics business or your coaching career as possible for free. So let's just dive on in. Care. Why do we care about care so much? What matters about care? Okay, quick story. 28 years old. My life was not going where I wanted to be. I went into therapy to ask better questions, to say, hey, how should I do life in a better way? And what I learned was that people do what they care about. And so while I'm sitting at this time in my life at 28 years old, I'm sitting in the world looking around it going, gee, I wish I could control the outcome. What I learned was, Raleigh, what you care about is not the same as what you're putting your effort in. So my effort and care did not match, thus I got to a point in life that I did not enjoy. And so I had to recalibrate, look at the world for what it is, not what I want it to be, and I needed to align my care and my effort. And since then, I jump-started my career in the gymnastics community and became a business owner and blah, blah, blah. Who cares about the rest, right? So that's where we are. So care drives effort, and that's why it matters. That's why it matters very, very much. So here's just some key things to identify essentially. It's like, what does somebody care about? Well, we know what people care about based off of their behavior essentially, but we're taking that behavior and trying to drive it into a point of care, what they need to care. But here we go, a sense of urgency. So when somebody cares about something, they tend to act quickly on it. They're very responsive or reactionary based on the moment because they care about something. So just by identifying how someone is behaving in the moment on a very moment-by-moment basis, you can start to kind of pick up what those people care about, and then you can adjust how you're going to respond accordingly. Core values. Now, core values and integrity sometimes get meshed together in a conversation, but I want to kind of separate them because to me, core values need to be more associated with kind of like a minute-by-minute feedback loop, kind of like a sense of urgency, but it's a pattern of behavior that you see consistently over time. And an example of that would be like self-discipline, let's say. If my core value is self-discipline, then that means that I clean up after myself whenever I make a mess, right? I'm self-disciplined in cleaning up. Or I might have really good time management skills, and so time management might be a core value of mine where I make sure that I'm always on time, or I'm always prompt, or I'm always communicating about what my schedule is so that I never have conflicts going on. I'm using a calendar, whatever it might be. It's a core value. It's something I'm doing with a pattern of behavior over time, but you can see the pattern of behavior over small little kind of cycles of time. So it might be minute by minute, it might be every 30 minutes, hour, or whatever, but there are these patterns of behavior. It might be daily. But it's not like integrity, which I'm going to separate with. Integrity is going to have like an overarching kind of big macro view of your core values. So integrity might be more like you have a job and you need to quit the job because you're going to go do something else with your life. And instead of giving a 2-week notice, you give a 1-month notice because you really care about the people and you really appreciate what they've done for your life and how they've added value to your life. So you're like, I'm going to give you a 1-month notice. And upon doing that, you also decide unconsciously, because you have integrity, that you're going to maintain your level of performance working at that job for the last month. So instead of doing something where you're not kind of like senioritis in high school where your performance just tanks because the last few months of, high school are there and you're just like, why does it even matter? I just can't wait to be done. Instead of doing something like that, what you're doing is saying, I have this level of performance I've been operating at. I have a month until I'm done. And instead of tanking performance, I have integrity and I'm going to maintain that level of performance, or you might even exceed it just because you want to bless the people that you've been working with. So integrity, it's kind of, to me, a bigger life cycle of behavior. Then you have consequences versus outcome. The difference is this, and the differences between these two is essentially consequences come from care without effort. So your care and your effort do not align, you're going to headbutt consequences. Versus outcome is care with effort. When your care and effort do align, you will reach an outcome. Now, the subtle nuance between the difference between here, which is, I mean, not so subtle in the sense of you can see right there, but when you're looking at somebody's behavior and you're driving it towards care, it's incredibly subtle to see if the care matches the effort, especially with all the stuff that's going on in a moment-to-moment basis. You're like, there's so many things going on, so to really dig through the nuance to see if the effort is matching the care oftentimes gets overlooked. And here's my example on how you can really see it, and you can try this experiment out just to prove what I'm saying. Get a group of kids, doesn't matter what level they are, ask them to do something that is difficult enough that it's going to cause some sort of struggle. So it'd be like pull-ups, leg lifts, V-ups, some sort of physical exercise that you know that's high repetition at least, that you know that's going to cause difficulty over time, push-ups. Ask them to pick a number. What is the max number you can do? Don't let them experiment. Don't let them feel out any of the motions. So don't like go do a bunch of pull-ups and then ask them this number and then go do the pull-ups. They got to be cold. They got to not experience it all in the day. And then say, okay, everyone, you're going to do pull-ups today. I want you to pick a number. Tell me the number that you think you can do exactly that number. Okay, no more, no less. Just tell me what that number is you think you can do. What you'll find is somebody who knows themselves really well because they've had an experience using their vehicle, their body, to do things, produce effort, essentially, they're going to be very accurate on that number. Someone who does not know themselves very well is going to either inflate the number or it'll be deflated. So someone who's a little bit more immature might say, oh, I could do 10 pull-ups, but really they can only do 5. Somebody who's experienced pull-ups will go, I know I struggle around 15. Like right now I could tell you on camera I could get 20 pull-ups in, but around there I'm going to peter out. I'm not really conditioned right now for doing more than 20 pull-ups, but I could get 20 pull-ups in. And I know that about myself. So that is the difference between who's living in which world, okay? If you're living in the world of you care, which is more status driven, I can do 10 pull-ups, but your effort doesn't match it. You can really only do 1 or 2, okay? If you're living in this world, you're going to hit a consequence of this type of behavior. And the consequence of this type of behavior is essentially plateauing, lack of progression, burnout, frustration. It's just negative. Versus here, if you can align your care with your effort, you now have a predictable outcome that is on the way. So I know that I can only do 5 pull-ups, and I do my 5 pull-ups, and I'm like, okay, cool, I hit my number, my effort aligned. Next day happens, I know I can do 5 pull-ups. Cool, I hit my 5 pull-ups, my effort and care aligned, and I do this over a period of time until all of a sudden I can do 6 pull-ups. Then all of a sudden I can do 7 pull-ups. Then all of a sudden I can do 8 pull-ups. And now I'm getting outcome because they're in alignment. And this is no different than if you've ever done running as a sport or a hobby. If you go on a 5-mile, 8-mile run for the first time and you've never run the course, essentially, it's all new, it feels really long. But the second time you run the same path, it gets a lot faster because your brain now knows what to expect. It's created mile markers, and that's because the effort is now matching and aligning with the care, because you're like, I got to run 8 miles, and your brain's like, okay, this is how much energy you have, this is how long it's going to take for you to survive to this point, and you can need to have a little bit more energy over here, you need to have less energy over here, you can handle, like a big hill's coming up that's going to suck out a lot of energy, but don't worry, you got a downhill part of the run, so you can chill out and breathe and recover down the downhill. All of that happens because your care and your effort are aligning. When your care and effort are not in alignment, you got consequences. And that to me is the biggest, like, out of anything you could take away from any of my videos, if you go and start to understand this dynamic in an athlete's progressionary step and learning skills, this will revolutionize the way you approach problem solving and which problem to solve. So really hold on to that, and we'll probably make more videos down the way about that topic in general. Okay, so there's things to care about. What things should I care about? And this is really the capacity of a person. So, example of the problem here in this story, the problem that happens. You're a recreational coach, you're working with some kids, you're doing, let's say, forward rolls down a wedge. And then the student's like, this is easy. What's usually the tendency? Well, the instructor then tries to make it harder, okay? And so then it's like, well, then they do the next thing. Okay, you're going to roll across the floor flat. Oh, well, this is easy. So what do they do? Make it hard. Okay, roll up the wedge. Okay, this is easy. Then they do something harder. If you're an inexperienced coach, those jumps of making things more difficult sometimes are like really big, or they're not even related at all. It's like you're doing rolls down a wedge and like, this is easy. And you're like, well, I try cartwheels. And then all of a sudden they're crashing on the floor, falling all over the place. The problem with that solution that the instructor is using, and I feel like it's common enough that people can, hopefully you guys can relate to it at least, is this is easy as saying, hey, my effort is exceeding my care. Like, I don't care about what we're doing and my effort is exceeding it, okay? Whatever, that's fine, no big deal. But all of a sudden when something becomes so hard that you're crashing all over the place, now it's like your effort cannot match your care. You go, wow, that's really exciting, I want to do it, and all of a sudden you don't have the ability to produce the effort necessary to be successful, and now you're just crashing all over the place and it just looks terrible, okay? So the goal in gymnastics is not to go from this side and develop this side. The goal of gymnastics should be to never, never, ever deal in this at all, and instead optimize this. And so the question is then, how do I increase difficulty while staying here? And this is the subtle nuance, and this is why I built the framework the way I did, because I've noticed from being a gymnastics coach for multiple years, working at camps, working at clinics, working with other athletes that are not mine, and have trained under other coaches, okay? And so I see a common pattern. What I've noticed, even in my early years of coaching, oftentimes the physical side is what everyone tries to pursue and push. And so they just get the next skill, get the next skill, try harder, get the next skill. You can't get the skill right now, just huck and chuck it, hope and pray, get the next skill, get the next skill. Okay, well maybe if you do some more conditioning, you can get the next skill. What is this doing? It's only elevating the physicality of the athlete. And it isn't completely ignoring their mentality and their emotional state. And so it's not developing over here. And so what do you end up having is you have an athlete whose physical, ability starts to elevate, but their mental state is too below it, and their emotional state's way down here, and all of a sudden they hit a ceiling and they can't go anymore. And whether that ceiling leads to injury, or that ceiling leads to frustration because they can't progress in skill, or that ceiling is fear, frustration, burnout, even injury, I'm going to say, injury, okay, is all a product of this. You don't get injured, okay, you don't have an overuse injury, okay, or a happenstance surprise injury because you are in tune with your mental state or you are in tune with your emotional state. Those things happen because you're ignoring and neglecting this, okay? Overuse injuries is because you're no longer taking account for all the numbers and all the time you're putting into the body, which is a mental situation. You're not holding yourself accountable to the load and stress being put on your system, and so you're ignoring it because you're in pursuit of the physical. And so you're going, well, yeah, I know my wrists are sore from doing 37 back handsprings on a beam, but I really need to get that back handspring, so I'm just going to do some more. You're ignoring the mental tracking that needs to be happening. Or you have another situation, which would be fear, okay? The emotional state that's like, hey, yo, chill out, you should not do this, you're scared, okay? The fear, and all you do is like, you know what, I'll just close my eyes, hope and pray, maybe it'll work out. It's like, when you black out in the middle of a certain skill, the ground's gonna come fast. So you're ignoring the emotional state. Now, are there ways you can hack the system to skip over some of these? Yeah, if you're incredibly mature and you know exactly what you're doing and you understand why these are all here and how to make them work together for your benefit. But early on, no, you can't cheat yourself on this stuff, okay? So when you're chasing the physical status of gymnastics and you're ignoring the mental and emotional, you're just setting yourself up for, you got it, consequences. They're coming right at you like a train, just kaboom, just gonna run you over. 100% of the time too. You know the videos that you're watching, you're looking for help, advice, and you might be the coach doing this, but you're looking for help and advice. You're like, what's wrong with my athlete's back handspring? Or why is their kip, why can't they make their kip? Or whatever the other generic, problems are that are pretty much easy to solve, but most people are going down the wrong path. That's all consequences because you're chasing this and you have none of this. Simple as that. Their effort does not match their care. They do not care to keep their legs straight. Therefore, they pull their toes to the bar with bent knees. They lack care. Well, why don't they care with keeping their legs straight? Because if they cared about keeping their legs straight, their leg pull would be too slow. And if their leg pull is too slow, it exposes they're physically weak. So they don't want to be physically weak because then I have to condition and do other things. So I'll just bend my knees because then it'll speed up the toe pull. And then if I speed up the toe pull, I'll have a better chance of getting on top of the bar. Absolutely, you will. In fact, you'll make a kip with bent knees and then spend, like what? How many months or years trying to undo that because of your own ego on how you got the skill? Versus you develop the mentality in an athlete and you say, look it, until you're physically strong enough to do it at maybe like, let's just say a 9.0 value, if we were just to put a point system on the skill, until your skill looks like it, your physicality looks like it can handle a 9.0, we're not worrying about it. We're developing the conditioning and we're developing the mental state of holding yourself accountable, and we're going to deal with the emotional state of just doing numbers and numbers and numbers and numbers of basics and basics and basics and basics. But I'm frustrated. Yeah, you know what? And this is what I tell my athletes, and I've seen like, some of you out there, I hope you can at least comment and respond and be like, yes, Raleigh, this is true. Because this is what I have seen, and I feel like this is a very core truth in the difference between athletes at the top and athletes at the bottom, okay? In all sports. Emotionally, basics, emotionally. When an athlete can do the same thing over and over and over and again and never have an emotional response to that activity, that skill, that drill, that progression, when they are no longer emotionally responding to it, that is when they have arrived. Until then, as long as they're like, oh, kick walks again, as long as they're like that, they haven't figured it out. They are still on an emotional journey to get mentally and emotionally prepared for whatever skills are about to become their next train wreck, essentially. So what I do for the emotional side, okay, athlete wants to get a skill. Let's keep kips in land, okay? Or they don't want to get a kip. I want to get a kip. Everyone else has a kip. I don't have a kip. It's all about status, and I want to have my ego, you know, on the top of the mountain, and I want to feel so good about myself because if I get that kip, my self-esteem is going to go up. It's not, but that's what they think that's going to happen, okay? If I just get that kip, that's what's going to happen. You know what I'm going to do to that person? I'm going to say, hey, let's go do some leg lifts. We're going to just do some more leg lifts. We're going to do some more leg lifts until you're like so tired and you're like, I don't want to leg lift anymore. And then when I see you again, you're going to say, hey, Rolly, can I do some kips? And I'm going to say, no, you can go do some leg lifts. And then they're going to do some leg lifts. And they're like, can I be done? How many? How many leg lifts should I do? There's no number. Just keep leg lifting. But can I be done? Nope, not. You're just leg lifting. We're just going to leg lift, okay? In a responsible way. I'm not over doing it because you're dealing with a kid who's going to put in like 10 leg lifts in, I don't know, a couple minutes, so it's not a lot of volume. We're just going to keep approaching this emotional conversation until the athlete no longer asks me the question, can I kip? And instead, they start getting excited about their leg lift improving. And no longer are they rolling their eyes and being like, oh, leg lifts again? And they're starting to go, you know what? I'm starting to see improvement. Can't wait to do these leg lifts. I'm going to get them better. And then they become that kid who's like, hey, I just did 20 leg lifts in a row nonstop, and I can do it with my legs straight, and I can do it from horizontal. And now when it's leg lift time, they're like running to the bars, ready to just destroy everyone in their ability to leg lift, while everyone else is emotionally struggling. Yeah, you see the difference in the emotional state, hopefully you can see? And that's just simply by pivoting what we care about and being like, no, we're not going to chase the status of getting skills. We're going to chase the emotional maturity required to actually have longevity in gymnastics and crush our ego, because our ego is totally getting in the way from figuring out how to develop the emotional state and the mental state. So that's my story with care. Now, recreational gymnastics, because I kind of talked about too much high-level gymnastics. So recreational gymnastics, you're going to teach a kid how to do a forward roll, and they're like, this is easy. Okay, you don't need to make it more difficult. You just need to pivot what you care about. So now you go, oh, you got the forward roll down a wedge? Cool. I'd like to see it with straight elbows. Or I'd like to see it with your knees together. Or I'd like to see you finish it in a tuck stand. Okay, so now you're asking for basically awareness. But you could ask like, okay, now I need you to ask questions. So like, great, you did the forward roll down the wedge, but what do you think you could improve? Now we're asking questions. We're getting them to be mentally engaged. So all we're doing is changing what we want to care about. Or we want to go, okay, well, let's overcome your fear, emotional discipline. So emotional discipline for rec kids is pretty hard. And I think the emotional side in gymnastics can be pretty hard for rec kids because they can quit at any time the moment they don't like something. So there's not a lot of investment that's in there versus a competitive kid who's committed. They can be frustrated for a little bit and they'll work through it. But you're going to have to develop that in your rec program, and it's got to be in the culture. However, you could deal with handling failure. You could deal with overcoming fear. I'm afraid to keep my elbows straight because maybe I'm going to land on my head or something like that. And so you could start overcoming little bits of emotional problems that are going to show themselves. But you don't need to elevate the difficulty on the physical level because there's so much more to explore on the emotional and mental level. Kind of concluding with this whole entire video on care, okay? This has been the biggest transformation of my coaching career, of really starting to look at how effort and care work together and pursuing after what somebody cares about and trying to get their effort to match that care. It's also been one of the most difficult things for me to do in teaching somebody who is new at coaching. I've noticed that people who are new at coaching, they don't know what to care about, and they don't know which care matters. And so what I have discovered is that as long as you care about something, and everything is kind of moving towards that thing you care about, then you're starting to build a culture inside your little pod of students. And eventually you can take that care, whatever you care, and slowly push it into the direction of the outcome, the goal that you're trying to achieve, which is usually certain skills so that you can level up or move on. So it kind of starts with, if you're new to coaching, it starts with picking something that you know you can achieve. Like I know, and that you also enjoy. So it's like picking something, like if you're like, oh, I'm a stickler for quality, like I really like seeing people do things really well, it's like, cool, then just care about pointed toes, or care about everybody standing in line, or care about everyone having straight arms. It's basic, simple stuff that everyone can do. Don't create hard things where the effort doesn't match the care. And it's like, pursue after the thing you care about, because you're gonna get excited about it. And when people start hitting the thing that you care, and when that effort starts matching what you're caring about, it's like now you have a reason to celebrate. Now it's like, high five, oh my goodness, I can't believe you did that. That's so awesome. Your effort matched my care. Boom. We have a reason to talk about something, celebrate something, and the energy is moving and elevating in a positive way. Last story, okay? A coach of mine is working with a rec competitive group, and they're on bars, and there's like 12 of them, and they're doing all sorts of stuff, different assignments, and she's yelling all sorts of different corrections, get quality. So we got tight knees, point your toes, we got try harder, we got to go, you got to keep just moving, you got to fall faster. I mean, it's like so many different things. She was throwing like the whole entire, kitchen sink of care at her entire group, okay? And so she's caring about all these things, and she's an awesome coach. High energy, super positive, incredibly kind, very attentive to all the girls in her group. Like, so great coach. But she's doing all of this. And I go over to her and I say, what are you trying to achieve? Like, what is your outcome for your group in this moment? And she's like, I don't know. Like, yeah, you don't. Well, the first thing you should be caring about is not burning out, because you're going to get exhausted throwing out all of these things simultaneously. She resonated with that, and she's like, yeah, okay, I can totally see how I'm going to get exhausted, because I'm feeling exhausted, constantly just rattling off all these different things. Right. So the reason why we want to care about one thing at a time is because it conserves our energy, and it gets rid of all the anxiety. Care about something. Care about adaptability. Care about rhythm. Care about performance. Care about asking questions. But care about one thing. Get your entire group on board to care about one thing. Measure the results of what they care about, the effort of what they're doing with what they care about. Reward it with celebration and acknowledgement and validation that everybody's moving in the right direction. Whether you care about one thing for 5 minutes, or care about it for 10 minutes, or care about it for 20 minutes, it's like just in the moment, pick one thing, pursue after it. If you need to pivot after that, fine. Cool, everybody, we're chasing quality right now for 10 minutes. I just want to see whatever skill you can do at the best quality you can do it. Don't show me stuff that looks lower than an A+. I want to see A+ quality in all your skills. That's all I want to see. Then go for it. Now, everyone's skill might look different, but they're chasing quality. And that's super important. But then you go, okay, well, you know what we need to do now is we need to work on skills that are for competitive level. So we need to work on our competitive level skills. Okay, so you're working towards performance essentially. So we're chasing skills that we're going to be performing. Okay, cool. Well, what about them? Well, I want to make sure that we're going to solve some problems, or we're going to hit some goals, let's say. So we need to set goals for those skills. And we need to say, okay, either we're working on skills that we're competing, but we cannot yet, so we're going to try to get those skills, or we're working on skills that we're competing, but the quality isn't where it needs to be, or the endurance isn't where it needs to be. So we're going to do high repetition or high numbers, and we're going to do lots of connections of those skills. But nail it down so the focus is very, very narrow in a set amount of time so that you can measure the effort matching the care. And then when the effort doesn't match the care, in that time, your brain is basically focused on one goal, and you can start seeing people who you go, the thing you said and what your effort looks like, they're not aligning. What do we need to do to pivot? And then you're working in the same direction, and your brain's not all over the place chasing so many different options. So that's my story about care. If you got through this video and you haven't watched the one about attention and behavior, I recommend you go back to the other 2 videos, and I look forward to sending you more videos. This is about the 4th one in a series. I got a lot more ahead of me, so I'm super excited. If you find value in this, please leave a comment, please like the videos, please subscribe. Just encourages me to make more of these and put more effort in the entire story. So you guys have all a blessed day, and I look forward to making another video for you.